Welcome to the Daily Apple. I'm your host, Kevin White. Emma Ryan and I will dive into all topics related to the science of longevity, along with some other subjects we just find of interest, with the hopes to provide useful information for everyone. This stems from my personal interest to optimize the human condition, to not just live longer, but to live better. Hey, well, welcome to the Daily Apple, and we're here today with Cliff Edberg. He is the master trainer. He's the senior director for Meora, which is Lifetime's new clinic operation, I assume. And then he's also a dietitian, so he's a double threat. And he's also been with Lifetime for 15 years. And I think of you as the trainer to the trainers, and you oversee all that. You're at the corporate headquarters in Minneapolis, correct?
Yeah, I'm it's in Chanhassen, Minnesota. Yeah.
Okay. But so I'm really glad you're here, and you're really different. The thing that resonated with me most, the first time I heard you speak, I thought, this is a guy that I really want to connect with, and just having you on the podcast is a special event, because the way where you're from and who you are and the way you deal with people and the way you train people is a unique, individual, effective process, really. And I don't know anybody else quite like that. So I'm just...
I appreciate that. I'm super pumped to be here.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just jump right into it, if that's cool. And we'll just talk about your story from the start, how you kind of got going here and how you ended up where you're at right now. So just, take us through that, man.
Yeah. So started back when I was young. When I was in 5th grade, I weighed as much as I weigh now as a 38-year-old. So I was 200 to 210 pounds as a 5th grader. So as you can imagine, that's not a really good time in your life. It's never a good time to obviously be overweight, self-conscious, but little kids are mean.
Yeah.
And I was teased relentlessly. I remember one time the San Francisco 49ers were my favorite football team, and I had a red jacket, and during Christmas time, a bunch of kids tackled me, held me down, sat on my lap, and told me what they wanted for Christmas because I was fat like Santa. So that was challenging. And then I was a football player. Just loved the sport. And I did my first strength and conditioning program over the summer. And it was right at a really solid time when I was just getting into puberty. So everything was starting to work a little bit better. And I lost almost 40 pounds that summer. And I was hooked on fitness from there. I made my dad go buy me weights. Didn't really know what I was doing. Hindsight, I guess it was pretty intuitive for me, but looking back at my program, it was all right. Mm-hmm. But I was strength training since I was 12, 13, every single night in my basement. Wouldn't go up and get dinner until I got my workout in. And it really saved me in multiple ways, right? I found my passion, I found my life's calling, but it saved me from embarrassment. It saved me from getting teased. The guys that used to pick on me no longer picked on me because I was bigger and stronger than them. Mm-hmm. Girls were no longer repulsed by me, which is pretty important when you're a 14, 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And that's where it all really started. Then if I continue the journey, I went to college in North Dakota, and I went as an engineer. I was pretty good at math, science. I was on path to be an engineer in 3 years, but I hated it. It just wasn't for me. Nothing against it, but just wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. And there was I was spending all my time between studying exercise and nutrition for my personal benefit. And I remember distinctly, I had these moments of clarity in my life. The weightlifting was one. And then this one, I was building a project with a group of my peers, and it was supposed to be a 1-hour class. We were going on hour 6 or 7, the entire class trying to figure this thing out. Teacher was just going to let us figure it out. And a group of guys across the way figured the problem out, got up, high five, chest bump. And I remember the exact words. I go, I hope I'm never that person. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized my career was going to be that person. So I got up, left the class, did not finish the project, went to my computer, dropped my major, and added exercise science without telling a soul.
You
Didn't
didn't even
know,
talk to anybody.
didn't talk to a single person, didn't talk to my parents who were helping me navigate through college, didn't tell anybody. I was like, I'm done. I'm going to just, I didn't know what, and I'm from a small town in upper Minnesota where there was no such thing as a personal trainer when I grew up. There was just didn't exist, right? Nobody had the credentials, nobody could afford it. So I didn't even know what career path I was going to end up. I just know that this is my passion point. If I follow my passion, I'm going to assume great things are going to happen. So I just
Mm-hmm.
did it. 3 quarters through my sophomore year of college or my freshman year of college. And then before I ended my that year, because exercise science and dietetics had a nice overlap from a freshman standpoint. You got to do your
Yeah.
anatomy, you got to do your biology. I added dietetics as well.
Yeah.
So pretty much gave my entire first year to some generals and learning about statics and dynamics, but then got into the calling of, then I was just head first into exercise nutrition and left college, $40 in my bank account to come down to Lifetime to get a fully commissioned job. Had to take out a microloan to afford my rent, my groceries for the first month as a personal
Fully
trainer diet,
commissioned.
fully commissioned.
Okay.
If you really want to dive in the story, my boss at the time actually forgot to hire me. Like he didn't file the paperwork.
Yeah.
So they actually couldn't pay me my first month. So I was in debt from school, in debt to the local bank here to pay for groceries and rent. And my general manager and my department head pulled me into the office. I'm like, we don't know what to do with you. Like, we can't help you. And at that time, Lifetime only did hiring one time per month. So, like, you got to wait 30 days. I'm like, I don't have an option to wait 30 days. Like, what can we do? And then the GM just, and he's still a dear friend, dear mentor of mine. He's still at Lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite people on earth goes, he just looks me dead in the eyes. He's like, are you going to make this happen? Are you going to make it work? I'm like, I have no other option.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's make it or make it. Like, those are
Right.
the only two options. He's like, all right. He left, walked to the ATM that we used to have at Lifetime, pulled out $1,000, handed me $1,000 as personal cash. It goes, there's your first month.
Huh.
And I was off and running. And then
Cool.
within the first 3 months, I was Minnesota's most successful trainer.
Yeah.
But through that, I had gotten into bodybuilding, which is also part of the story. So took from obese, self-conscious, and then I turned it to bodybuilding, where I was highly competitive on the natural level, super competitive. I almost went pro, but then I started to experience other things, right? Like I experienced anorexia, right, where you're eating 1,200 calories, you're working out 4 or 5 hours a day just to try to get down to the body fat that's required
Mm-hmm.
to get on the stage. So nothing against bodybuilding. I did 10 shows. My wife's a professional bodybuilder, but it tore me apart physiologically. But
Sure.
what it did is gave me this really unique view of exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, and how you look at yourself in the mirror, where I have experienced hating myself looking in the mirror and being teased and being self-conscious and frankly being suicidal, all the way to having a physique that most people only dream of. That's like, I was in magazines and things like that, but at that
Yeah.
point too, I hated myself, right? I wasn't big enough, I wasn't muscular enough, I wasn't
Right.
shredded. So I got to feel what overeating, binging, craving, all the way through intentional starvation. So when I met with clients, I, at 24, 25 years old, had experienced so much that I could relate with the guy that wants to put on 20 pounds of muscle because he's going through a divorce and he's terrified to get back on the dating scene, to somebody that can't escape their cravings and are so frustrated and feel helpless to those things. Like, I could resonate and empathize on a personal level of my personal struggles, and then we could work through it. Because I think a lot of fitness professionals and other medical professionals haven't gone through the spectrum, right? They're very knowledgeable, they're very educated, but until you've walked in that person's shoes,
Yeah.
you can misstep in your communication, right? It's you're a lazy person, you're not listening to me. If you only
Mhm.
listen to me, you have success, when it's certainly not that simple.
Mhm.
Because you have that human element that you need to address and get on that level. And some people need to sprint, some people crawls too fast. But if you're not a patient coach and provider, you lose patience, and not you lose patience in the person, you lose patience as customers, and it doesn't bode well for them, doesn't bode well for people's personal brand. So for the last 15 years at Lifetime, I've been able to share that story, help people, and let trainers, because every trainer that I work with, I pretend like they got $40 in the bank account like I did. Right. So I got to give them everything that I can give them, because that's how I view them. It's how I ensure that I give them my all every time I'm in front of them, or anybody that I'm working with, just to help, because there's so many people that want help, that need help. They don't know how to ask for the help, or they're not receiving the help that they need. And it's frustrating for all parties. It's probably more than you wanted, but thought I'd give it to y'all.
No, man. So many questions pop into my head as I hear that story. Yeah, kids are mean. Back to that. 200 to 210 in fifth grade. I remember, I mean, I wasn't anywhere near that. I wasn't in shape, but it was, I mean, you know, I, like any other kid, I mean, I stuttered really bad when I was in fifth grade. So I had to go to speech pathology, and kids would constantly, you know, and, but that's huge. It's funny how you remember that stuff and you take it with you your whole life. And it's kind of part of who you are, part of your foundation. But how awesome that you took that in a, you know, to be a positive thing for you, to totally change it. And then your freshman year, I mean, so many guys, I've got a 18, 19-year-old now. And so there's all this stuff about what you're going to do when you get older. And there's all this anxiety and everything that comes out sideways. But I mean, to make that flip of a switch decision and that significant clarity at that moment is just baffling to me, because, and then without talking to anybody about it, family, advisors, all that kind of stuff, you get so much information, and then just to have that light bulb switch on, that doesn't happen for everybody. So that means you're right where you need to be. Huh?
My mom was not happy.
She was
going to have an engineer this son, and now she's like, you're going to be a what? A personal trainer? What, a personal trainer?
Oh, man, I'm sure mom's proud of you now, man. Well, cool. So yeah, I just want to kind of talk about a little bit about your approach. But before I get into that, Miura, tell me about that. That's kind of a cool new project that we talked about a little bit before.
Yeah. Lifetime's starting to create a new entity under the umbrella of Lifetime, or partnership with the umbrella of Lifetime, called Miura. So you can see by the shirts, Miura Performance and Longevity. So if you look at Lifetime, we often, if you're not familiar with the brand, we have 180 plus locations across the United States and clubs in Canada. And the majority of our clubs are more like a country club. So we call ourselves a health and fitness destination, where you walk in, there's a full cafe, a full spa, complimentary daycare for 2.5 hours to drop your kids off starting at 90 days old. Right. So I have a 14-week at home, and he just started his childcare. So now I get to go get my workout in with my wife, and my 2 little ones get to go hang out and play in the childcare and go do some gymnastics. Then you have 100 plus cycle studio yoga classes, hundreds of pieces of equipment. Usually our boxes are about 100 to 150,000 square feet. So they're enormous. So with that, we have the ability to help people from, our tagline is 90 days to 90 years. But over the past several years, and especially with my passion in this space for helping people, is there were always our members, our clients, that you could be eating well, exercising well, and things aren't going right. And we had to send them out into the ether, right? We didn't have the ability to help them. And at Lifetime, we try to do our very best to accommodate the entire family's needs, right? Outdoor pool, indoor pool, sauna, steam rooms, right? We want that country club. We want you to come to Lifetime for all of your health and fitness needs. But there was a glaring gap. you have a thyroid issue, a hormonal issue, an inflammation issue, gut issue. There's only so many things that a trainer can recommend or has access to. And that's where we need people like yourself, where trained medical providers that are in in integrated medicine that can actually go down to the root cause and, where needed, leverage advanced formularies and pharmaceuticals and supplements that we didn't have access to. So within that, especially for me, as kind of the trainer of the trainers, trainers would come to me like, what do I do? And we would partner together to find a local provider we thought would be a good spot, but then they were in somebody else's care. And sometimes it went well, often it wasn't awesome, right? So it didn't look good on us, and we weren't helping our members, and those members usually had traded out because they weren't seeing success anymore. So over the last year and a half, we've really gotten on this endeavor, because it's completely new to Lifetime to offer these services, but to ensure that we can extend our reach. Now, we're not doing primary care. That's not what we're trying to do. But for those people that are seeking longevity, health, wellness, feel better, look younger, we have now medical providers that can offer a lot of those solutions, whether it's hormone therapy, novel peptides, IV drips, advanced supplements. We now have it in Minnesota, and we're acting like a hub and spoke. So the current location's in Target Center, Minneapolis, which is kind of in the heart of all the clubs. We have 24 clubs in Minnesota, so that all of our members can go to this centralized location and get care. So we start with really comprehensive blood work, championed by our Chief Science Officer, Jim Lavelle, just came on board a handful of months ago, leading the way. So we leverage his vantage point of how he looks at comprehensive assessments, looking across a full cascade of organs and systems, create a care plan that's inclusive of exercise, nutrition, lifestyle supplementation, and then where appropriate, we bring in things like GLP-1s, we bring in bioidentical hormones and hormone replacement therapy, we bring in thyroid support, things along those lines.
And so you have one of these at your hub there in the Target Center.
We're at one location right now, and it's really my job to bring the concierge white glove experience that is Lifetime. If any of you listening are familiar with Lifetime, bring it to patient care.
Yeah.
So that it's very smooth, nobody falls through the cracks, everybody gets the help that they need, and we're creating a model that's extremely hands-on. All too often, there's just not enough touch points. It's not a provider's fault, but they're limited time. There might be one, maybe two people, and they don't have what we have access to, is that corporate support to really help manage patient care. So as an example, we have a variety of different programs you can get involved in, but as an example, because we met at A4M talk at a weight loss, specifically like a GLP-1 user. We have a program, we call it our comprehensive program. It's pretty self-explanatory, but you start with the blood work, and if you are going to go on a GLP-1, we're going to wrap our arms around you. So you'll meet with a dietitian every single month. You'll meet with your medical provider every 6 weeks. And then we do blood at month 3, month 6, month 9, and then again a year later. And throughout that journey, hopefully we titrate you up, get the weight off, instill the new lifestyle habits, correct any underlying metabolic barriers, titrate you off the medication, and you have a whole new life.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. I want to talk about that as far as the GLP-1 agonist. They're so ubiquitous all over the place, and a lot of times people come to us and they're not, as a first-time client, and they've been on it for a while and it hasn't really been monitored or anything. And of course, we do DEXA scans really frequently, following progression and all that. But yeah, that's excellent that there has to be that close partnership hand-holding if they're on some of these peptides. Otherwise, it's a waste of money and time, and so
it's quite frustrating, especially when people are looking at this as their lifeline. It's a tagline I usually give when I think about these, because it's still kind of taboo. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but these are life-saving medication. When you look at the research and the mechanism of action, it's wildly beneficial. Again, we want to make sure that people are eligible and getting monitored. And it's crazy the impact it's having on our patients. And we have a handful of stories. One of my favorite ones is I have a coworker She's a senior vice president. She's been working for Lifetime over 20 years and always struggled with her weight. She was a collegiate swimmer. She works out 5 or 6 days a week. If you see her in the break room, she's crushing salad and tuna, like plain tuna, and could not move the weight. And again, she takes her classes. She's hired dozens of trainers. Like, she has access to everything, and it just wouldn't break through her insulin resistance until we got her on tirzepatide. She's lost 45 pounds in 6 months and is a whole new human.
Yeah. Yeah. So where I found a lot of benefit from it is, you know, some of those folks, like what you said, that are significantly overnourished and just can't, you know, head banging against the wall despite all the things, and really trying to go low glycemic, and we have them on CGM monitors and trying to manage insulin resistance. And then we have to sometimes flip the switch and follow them closely, but it's, dramatic. So yeah, very beneficial. I guess while we're on that, I wanted to talk about that a little bit, but how do you manage some of that as far as, you know, you worry about, so for instance, one of the stories I have, and this is a common story, what we do is we have people really manage their protein intake in an appropriate fashion. They're going low caloric, obviously, with the GLP-1, but and then, you know, resistance weight training to make that protein more anabolic, to have that effect for protein synthesis in the muscle, therefore keeping the weight off once they off ramp, and then, you know, actually for longevity and all that. So without doing that on the DEXA scans, you know, you instruct people and try to, you know, but then whenever it comes to what they want to do, sometimes it'll, you know, the lean muscle will be trending downwards, and of course the weight will come off, and they'll still be the same percentage body fat, and you haven't really changed the composition overall. That's kind of frustrating. That's kind of where you come in with some of the way you manage these people, and which I do want to get into that as well. But, you know, GLP-1 agonist, what things do you really hit on? Whenever you look at that as a trainer, nutritionist, dietitian?
Yeah, for sure. So if we start with nutrition, you're spot on. Prioritize. So there's really 3 things that I really focus on. Nutrient density, your appetite will go down. So what are your defense mechanisms? That might be too strong of a word, but what's the defense mechanism to make sure that if you're eating a hyponutrient dense diet, you're just not eating less of it, right? Because now you're even getting less nutrients in. So educating our patients around what does that look like? What does that feel like? And then for most of them, they're going to be leveraging a high quality multivitamin, because again, managing lifestyle to do a complete flip, right? There's a reason that you might have gotten to the point where you're at from food choices. And again, understanding the members and the patient's journey to make a flip going, I eat conveniently high flavor, high palatable food, to I'm eating chicken breast and broccoli, is just not a thing, right? It's a thing for like 3 days and then you fall off, right? Well, that's me being a bad provider, bad coach, if I set you up for that kind of expectation. So step 1 is we need to get that high quality multivitamin, multi-mineral in, so that you're not getting that nutrient depletion. So that easy step 1. Step 2 is getting enough protein in. Now, again, that's often hard. It's not easy to eat a lot of protein. It's very satiating. You get a lot of palate fatigue from protein. So finding and identifying sources and then ways to get it in, whether it's a flavorful protein shake that we're both proud of, or leveraging amino acids or branched chain amino acids to make sure that you're getting enough of those key nutrients to manage that. Most often, in addition to that, we'll add creatine to the mix, 5 grams a day. If you're a bigger person, more muscular, maybe upwards of 10. But making sure that we're doing that to maintain muscle mass, and then getting enough fiber to avoid some of the gastric distress that some people have with some of the components of that GLP-1 is that slower gastric emptying, going through the system a little bit slower, can often cause constipation, especially if you're not getting a lot of fiber, a lot of hydration. So we make sure that we get out in front of that. Also, you're going to be storing a lot of environmental pollutants and toxins within your fat cells. and you're going to be losing it quickly. So you're going to have a lot of exposure. So the more fiber we can use to bind to that and get it out of your system, because often when people start getting on these things, they start to see rapid weight loss. They'll get migraines, they'll get headaches, they'll have restless sleep. We can augment some of that, not all of that, but some of that by getting them to go down that path. And then clearly, because we do the comprehensive blood work, we're addressing any underlying dysfunction. Anything that we can do in addition to support blood sugar regulation, whether it's a berberine, a chromium. Usually it's a cortisol thing too, right? So a Rolora, that'll help satiate a lot of those cravings in the evening. And again, even we want to give people a fighting chance, right? So just because you're on GLP-1 doesn't mean your cravings are going to go away. You might have less, and it might be habitual, right? I'm used to having the thing before bed. So the craving might not be there, but that's a 20-year habit, right? So anything that we can do to give them ammunition, because everybody only has so much willpower during the day.
Yeah.
And depending on your day, right? Stressful job, stressful kids, traffic, spouse, all those things are borrowing against your willpower. And that's where people fall off in the evening, right? I had a great breakfast. I tried my best at lunch, holding on my white knuckling it in the evening, and then I just throw my hands up. So anything that we can do to give them a little bit more willpower, a little bit more strength, so they're not fighting those cravings so much. Again, that's where the snowball slowly starts going in the right direction. Right now I'm losing 3 or 4 pounds per week. Now I don't want to screw up my progress, and they start getting that confidence and that momentum. But
yeah,
that's the key part, is finding that momentum for them so that they start to be self-motivated. I know everybody that might be listening or going is like they're in a point of motivation, but again, it's the goal is to get that mindset and that motivation that lasts a lifetime, which does take a significant amount of time and effort. And often too many people bite off more than they can chew, and it's not their fault. It's chemistry, right?
Yeah. You know, you mentioned you mentioned something before about, you know, when you lose fat, it's almost like toxic, you know, almost like you're detoxing, kind of, so to speak, because you're releasing all this stuff. And, you know, what I tell people, if you're doing that, that's good. You're doing what you need to be doing. Expect that. That's part of it. And once you get over the other side of that, that's a good thing. But just because you feel like crap, just, you know, that means you're doing the right stuff.
Yeah.
So
setting expectations is really important.
But yeah,
and then when
go ahead.
Next layer from a strength training standpoint,
yeah,
we provide all of our patients with a comprehensive training program that we've put together online for them through our app that they can leverage. But really the main thing is you got to strength train multiple times per week. 2 would be my expectation. Again, depending on the individual, that might be 10 minutes, that might be an hour, but it's that consistency to remind the muscle that it needs to stick around, right? So I'm putting in the protein, creating the mechanical tension, the muscle damage, the metabolic stress on that muscle, signaling that I still need to stick around, focusing on primary muscle groups. So again, 2 times a week, I'd have everybody hit their main muscle groups twice a week. So for often it's 2 total body workouts. We're going to be doing our upper push, upper pull, our squats, our hinges, our lunges, core work, and hitting those primary movement patterns, getting the most bang for the buck. And from there, like I mentioned, the supplementation, make sure that those necessities are rounded out and that we're attacking any other thing. Because again, if you have that a lifestyle that hasn't been overly healthful, you have unwanted body fat, super inflammatory, it's going to cause joint pains, muscle aches. And if you're not combating that, adding strength training to that is only going to make you more sore. So again, our bodies are wired to fight against hunger and pain, and going down this path for some people is hunger and pain, right? And pain just comes in with soreness and stiffness from exercising because it's new. So I need to make sure I'm setting people up for success, that they're prepared for it and they're not overdoing it, not underdoing it, but they have the tools and resources that they know how to combat that, so that they're enthusiastic around a little stiff and sore because it's a sign of accomplishment, not that I should be fearful of this. And then making sure that they know with confidence that when they spend their time, money, and effort at the clubs, that it's going to be well worth their time. Because if you go in there and make it up as you go, you have uncertainty. That's where professionals like myself come in and can add some of that certainty. But if you're doing, again, primary muscle groups, compound muscle groups, meaning you're using multiple joints at a time, I'm pushing doing push-ups, I'm doing pull-ups, or I'm doing lat pulls, I'm doing squats, I'm hitting multiple joints and all those muscles across each one of those joints. I'm recruiting a lot of muscle. I'm creating a lot of tension. I'm breaking down the muscle a little bit, which stimulates the growth or the maintenance of it. Is a really great place to start.
Mm. And, which kind of brings me to some of your methods and everything. One thing I was happy about is that you kind of do meet people where they are to get the most success. And I mean, you had that one story, which I thought was cool. I mean, a lot of people just need off-ramped and to develop some small habits to build on. And it's so easy for, for the default to be, okay, you need to do this and this and this. We need to train 4 times, 5 times a week. We need to eat this and this and this at these times. And you want to just get so started because you're so excited about them, walking in to your office and making a change. But sometimes people need to be met where they're at. And you shared this story in your talk about, and you know what I'm going to talk about is that,
Tracy.
Yeah, the shoe deal, but it was just that was just share that a little bit if you don't mind. That's just kind of a cool little story.
Yeah, sure. So my theme when I work with my customers or my clients, or now as I'm supporting patients, is progress, not perfection. All too often have people, especially in today's age, type A, all or nothing, and any little slip equals nothing. And the day's blown up. I'll just eat what I want. I ate like crap yesterday, therefore I'll just eat like crap today, and it's a vicious cycle. And again, I've lived that, so I understand what that looks and feels like. But worked with a woman named Tracy. She hired me. She had hired multiple trainers over 10 years, spent $100,000+ on personal training, and not gotten anywhere. So she hired me. And one of the things I always do with my clients when we're working, we set some of those foundational habits, right? She hired me for 3 times a week, but we clearly needed to get into nutrition, lifestyle, supplementation. And what she was used to, what you just alluded to, is they get a laundry list of things they need to do. Eat multiple times per day, eat enough fiber, eat enough protein, monitor your carbs, get your fish oil in, eat healthy fats, not bad fats, cook your food or store your food in glass, not plastic, eat or drink a gallon of water a day, but not tap water, right? Shop organic, there's just this list, and people don't realize that that's just physiologically and psychologically just not possible for somebody to get on and maintain that long term. And the stats are wild. When you start getting to multiple habits, the outcome is usually 0 success over the course of 3 to 6 months. So what we did is she was committing to 3 times a week. She was paying for it. So I knew she was going to get those in. So we started talking about lifestyle. And I asked her, I always ask all my clients, because it has to be intrinsic and internal, right? If I impose something on them, because again, I need to get them to move more, lift more, eat less, eat better. And all I'm doing is, if you think about it, I'm taking your time, I'm taking your favorite foods. And that is really hard when you're getting told what to do, whether instead of you being part of the decision making. So all my clients were always part of the decision making. I'd always redirect if I thought we were off a little bit, but again, it was always their decision. So I asked her, I said, Tracy, what's the thing that you need to do in your life do you think would be most impactful for your weight loss? And she said, I need to exercise every day. I said, okay, that's great. And again, whenever I'm working with a customer, I give you guys some of this language. I always empathize and talk about it. I think that's great. I think exercising every day is a fantastic goal. And then I ask a question on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being there's no chance in hell, 10, I'll knock it out of the park. What do you think your likelihood is exercising 7 days a week for the next 3 months? She goes, 0. It's below 1. I'm like, well, then I can't ask you to do that, right? I would be failing you.
Yeah.
So then we just kept going, and we just like, what do you think? What do you think? And we got down to the path of walking. I walk 10,000 steps a day. Scale of 1 to 10, 2, can't do it, right? Yeah. I never let a client, that was a strong phrase, but I encourage clients not to proceed with the habit until they're a 9 or a 10, right? And then we grow the client, shrink the obstacles, and we can continue to get better. So we started with walking and got all the way down. And what you were alluding to with the shoes is our habit was, Tracy, can you put your gym shoes on every day? And she says, yes, 10 out of 10. That's a stupid goal. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, you're coming 3 times a week. You already got those in.
Yeah.
Let's just start for the first week. I want you to, if you're open to it, again, intentional language. Everybody wants to be open-minded. If you're open to it, let's put your gym shoes on every single day and then report back on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
She comes back Monday and she's got a little smirk on her face. I'm like, Tracy, how did you do with your shoes? She goes, I did it every day. And then I go, Tracy, did you happen to do anything else when you had your gym shoes on?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, I went for 2 walks. I'm like, Tracy, not only did you meet my expectations, you crushed it. You far exceeded anything I'd ever thought you'd do.
Yeah.
And in that moment, she got a little teary-eyed because after 10 years of being told what to do and failing for 10 years straight, she met her trainer's goal for the first time.
Right.
And exceeded the trainer's goal. And after that, it was really easy to work with Tracy.
Yeah.
We did her habit, slowed it down, and every single week. And after a few months, she started going, what if I tried this?
Mm-hmm.
What if I tried this? Do you think I could do this?
Mm-hmm.
And she started to believe in herself and what she was capable of doing because we started slow. We got the micro wins. A couple times she tried to impose some things that would distract because inherently some people, if you've been down that path for a while, I know I felt this myself, is you start to self-sabotage, right? I can't do it. I know I can't do it, so but I remember one time distinctly she was talking about, well, I had a really bad weekend. Like, what happened? Well, I had some friends in town. We did a barbecue. I ate things I shouldn't. I had a whole bunch of drinks I shouldn't. I'm like,
yeah,
that's fine. We weren't working on that, right? She's like, well, what do you mean? It's part of the plan. I'm like, no, we're working on steps. We're working on, and I listed them out. We never talked about not eating in the barbecue. We never talked about alcohol yet.
Yeah.
You're still completely on track for what we're trying to do together.
Yeah.
And then it started to click again, right? Progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
So she was able to forgive herself. Yeah, you did those things. Own it.
Mm.
If you feel bad about it, maybe don't do it again. But right now we're focused on these singular things. We're going to put them in a bubble. And then when you want to make your bubble bigger, we can make it bigger. But not until this bubble's really safe, secure, and consistent.
Yeah. And just managing that guilt. I mean, that guilt will just send people down and just just tearing them up. And like you said, self-sabotage. I've had people who come back to me, I fell off the wagon, and it's been like 2 months since their last appointment or 3 months. And it would cycle and cycle and cycle. So that's awesome to not, people don't like to be judged like that so harshly. Yeah. So yeah. And
that's the biggest thing that I think too many providers and coaches and dietitians do is they judge.
Yeah.
Again, unless you've walked in their shoes, you can't. And when people say they can't do what you're asking them to do, it's most likely that you failed them, not the other way around. Because you asked them something to do that they are not psychologically capable of. They don't want to do it. They don't know how to do it. They don't know if they are doing it. Unless you lay those parameters, kind of like we talked to A4M, like here's the rubric on how you set a habit. You're setting people up for failure. They're not actually failing. If you're asking somebody to do too much and not out asking their confidence level, if they're not a 9 or a 10, you're failing them by asking them to do it.
Yeah, you don't, hey, I want to be a pilot, and then you're thrown in the cockpit, and go fly and land real quick. You'll be fine. Just do all these things. Now, let's talk about maybe altitude, wind speed. Let's talk about these things. Well, cool. You know, that some of those things bring me to the point of how do people find a good trainer? That's the big trick. I mean, you're not everywhere. We can't replicate you through AI. Maybe we can. I don't know. But what
I need more for sure.
What, you know, there are online options. There are, I mean, what do you think about that when people ask you?
I think there's a few things after training 10,000 personal trainers in my career that really stand out when I'm looking at a trainer. One of which is their thoroughness of a program. Most trainers in the industry call it intuitive training, which just means I'm a really lazy trainer. Is they just kind of make stuff up as they go every workout that they come in. They don't have a plan, and they don't support the client or the patient outside of their training sessions. So a good trainer will have a full thought over the next 3 months. So Kevin, if I'm working with you and you hired me, we'd figure out where you're starting. We would have a discussion around all the things coming up in your schedule for the next 3 to 6 months. When's work going to be tough? When are your vacations? When do you have events? All those things. And we would build a program that, again, we're both confident on. And where we have vacations, we make those pivots. We do more sessions before or after. We have homework workouts prepared. You send me the website to the hotel you're at. I'm looking at the gym and I'm putting a workout together for you using the equipment that you'll have access to. Again, eliminating any barriers, because when people walk into a facility they've never used before, I don't know what to do. I don't know what exercises. I don't know when order I should do them. And they get frustrated and they don't do it. But as a coach, I need to take that personal responsibility. I need to add certainty that you know what and when to do it, for how long, for how many reps, etc. Because with that structure, it's a very easy yes or no, I did or did not do it, right? And then I provide the accountability. So that's one of the main things, is just the thoroughness and full thought that a coach brings to each one of the clients. Because without that, you're going to be surprised when they're on vacation and you didn't prepare for it, right? They're going to have an event that they knew about for 3 months that you didn't take into account. And I'll go as far, and this is where you start tearing up with trainers, is if I know that you have a series of work events, right? There's people in town, you're hosting, whatever it may be. We will sit down during your session and we will look up every single restaurant and we'll both align on the foods that you'll choose before you get there. So that you're not held captive to, this is what I usually eat here. This is what everybody else is eating here. That smells really good. That sizzling plate of fajitas with the 12 tortillas just went by, and now I'm salivating for that. So I'll go for it. Yeah. We establish a plan ahead of time so that there's a clear direction that we're going. There'll be bumps, right? Progress, not perfection, but there is certainty to the program. And if you find somebody that thinks like that and acts like that, or you might have to set that expectation if you're hiring a trainer. And if they're good, they'll listen because they want to retain your business. That's what you should be looking for. And then if you're lucky enough to have somebody that has a real well thought out process around extra nutrition and supplementation, that's always best. But most people are looking from the exercise component. So that's usually stage gate 1. If I look at a trainer, I'll see them on the fitness floor and I say, hey, what's this person's plan for the next month? And they'll look at the process. What do you mean? They're working out twice a week, right? That's a sign that member, that customer isn't getting what they deserve.
Yeah. You know, that planning ahead of time is really freeing for people. Then they're not shackled to the, oh crap, and all the nervousness and anxiety with going out and doing things. Like I've got one patient that he's single. He could afford to have an in-home chef, but he just likes, being out socially and everything. And he's not going to cook squat for himself. So whenever you said, spending time going through restaurants and at least finding the best. Yeah, exactly. So we have an appointment this Friday.
The environment you're going to be in, let's make the best choice while you're there.
Yeah.
That you want to make. But I'm not imposing on you.
Right. Well, cool. What, tell me a little bit about, does Lifetime, do you guys still do an online training option? Is that anything that you guys do?
And we've been doing that for a while. Depending on the customer and the trainer, depending on the success of that, because most people need the in-person accountability. We learned that through COVID. One of the projects that I spearheaded during COVID was championing virtual training. And we gave a lot of members programs, but the human aspect was never more transparent than through COVID about how much being proximate to other people working out, people that look like you, having a trainer there to keep you motivated through the challenging parts so that you can get the best benefit out of the workout. Yeah. So we certainly still do it, but it's usually reserved for our clients that are highly motivated and highly knowledgeable. And they just need the structure
Mm-hmm.
or somebody that has a better understanding of program design and periodization.
Mm-hmm.
But rarely do we see people that are just starting with just a program for a lot of those reasons,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the community, it's the support, it's that hands-on coaching and cueing. It's knowing that someone's going to be there when you show up and that you have that layer of accountability is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got patients that have little home gyms and that sort of thing, and they just don't want to go to they don't want to go any place, and
Yeah.
trying to find something that works for them, but
Yeah, that works for them.
yeah.
Absolutely. It would just be making sure that, again, they're creating enough of a stimulus to support the change they're desiring.
Mm-hmm. Well, back to a little bit about, training methods and all that. And I know that this is probably a longer conversation than we could get into, but as far as like, a lot of people talk about, myself included, adequate quality protein, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to kind of segue into nutrition a bit, because I want to pick your brain a little bit about this. So, as far as protein, how it's absorbed, all these sorts of things, I have some people on, like you mentioned, finding a shake that works for them. I, try to look at that, because not all protein is created equal by any means.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of junk out there. So finding a good quality protein, but so like, for instance, people who are trying to keep lean muscle mass or hold on to lean muscle mass or increase it, and then losing body fat and visceral adiposity, which we didn't really even talk about, but, we have them do like a protein shake in the morning because it's easily absorbed, maybe after a workout, and then trying to hit quality protein throughout the day to kind of meet certain marks. How do you perceive that? How do you look at it? Not all proteins are absorbed the same. And whenever people talk about like good quality protein and all that, what do you tell people with that as a dietitian?
Yeah, usually I'll go one layer above and go, what do you like to eat? Because again, if I'm going high quality and we're talking about chicken breast and salmon, what if I hate those things?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? Now I'm forcing food down where food is for humanity, really a source of comfort and peer bonding and assortment of other psychological pieces. So if we start with the wrong question, not that that's the wrong question by any means, but we have to go one layer up.
Yeah.
Going, what kind of protein options do you like to eat? Right? Because if I impose the wrong thing, right? Well, let's eat your sirloin. What if you have aversion to meat because you're pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Like, or you have a lingering aversion because of some sort of, like for me, I still have one for fish. Like if there's a bony fish, I won't eat it because I choked on a bone when I was a kid and it got lodged in my throat for like a day and a half. So if there's bones in it, I'm not eating it. Tastes fine, like it, but I won't do it. Right? So those things, someone told me, yeah, I need you to eat more whitefish. I'm like, in my head, I'm doing this, but in my head, I'm like,
not gonna happen.
Because as you get more ingrained with nutrition, even if I'm working with a vegan vegetarian, we can make the best choices for your preference of eating. Right? We just have to work with what we have. But so I usually start with what are you willing to do? What do you like to do when we work within those? And we might experiment with some food, some seasonings, some cooking modalities to try to increase the palatability. But again, looking at from a family standpoint too, if you have young kids and they don't want to eat that, are you going to cook yourself the chicken breast on the grill? Or are you going to more mirror what they're doing? Okay, if we're mirroring what some of those, like what can we work within those confines to make it a step or two better? But I like where your head's at. The high quality whey protein, if they're not intolerant to it, is usually a staple for me because they have become quite tasty. You can get them with stevia and monk fruit flavors without any additives. They're super smooth. They can almost act like a dessert. Many of them you can bake with, you can cook with.
Yeah.
They're can go in coffee, so it's an easy way with. And again, because protein can be so satiating that we can get around some of those things for sure. But yeah, if I'm going just like pure recommendation as much as we can, meat, fish, poultry. And then we just work within their workout windows to make sure we don't accidentally run into any GI distress going into the workout. So usually when I'm helping somebody 2 to 3 hours, it would be a whole meal. The closer you get to it, then I start to simplify, to your point, the digestibility. So if you're starting to get inside that hour or so, we're going to go more shake-esque standpoint. Yeah. If we're talking about the first thing I do in the morning is I wake up and I hit my weights downstairs, then I'll even go as far as just doing aminos with a high leucine BCA content. Maybe it's 10 grams of essential amino acids with a high level of BCAs, just because it's going to be really rapid, so that they have some of that to support muscle anabolism and prevent any acidic breakdown.
Yeah.
And then from a target standpoint, again, if I were to go globally, I usually get to, because I'm a high protein kind of guy, because I've seen such incredible success with it.
Yeah.
The research backs it. 1 gram per pound of your ideal body weight.
Yeah.
Ideal body weight, not current body weight, right? But that is usually so far outside of the realm of where they're even willing to start. So it's usually 10 to 20 gram increments that we work up with. If you're at 70, if we got to 90, that's another snack, or that could be a whole meal for you. That's really powerful. Once we've gained comfortability with that, that's become a lifestyle, then we can slowly, gradually eat up while we're managing muscle mass, soreness, things along those lines. And again, we can leverage other therapies, whether it's creatine, whether we use a growth hormone secretagogue like Somorelin or something along those lines to support muscle mass, some other advanced therapies that we could do to support that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, high protein just doesn't, one thing I didn't know that I read recently is that protein, if you ingest more than you can absorb, it doesn't convert as efficiently to glycogen or to fat as well. So even if you kind of overdo it on protein versus other kinds of, junk foods or, simple carbs or whatever, you're much less likely to increase your unwanted body fat as well.
Yeah. What you eat is not what you digest and absorb. So if you talk about, we could briefly get into the thermic effect of food. If I eat 100 calories of carbohydrates, digestion, absorption, the energy it takes, I'll probably absorb 96 of those calories. If I eat 100 calories of olive oil, I'll probably absorb 98 because it's a fat. Our bodies are really good at using and storing fat. But protein's like 75%. So if I eat 100 calories of protein, I'm only able to use, or 100 calories of protein, I'm only able to use for actual energy and absorb and metabolize about 75 of those calories. So and it's very hard for your body to store that as fat. So when I'm working with somebody with appetite and we're trying to get over that, it's especially for the guys, I don't mean to generalize it, but if we can get them down a lean protein path, I don't put a limit on it. If you only eat 350 grams of chicken breasts over the course of 2 meals, go for it. You might have some gas, maybe some indigestion, but you will feel very full. And
that's a lot of chicken breast, but yeah.
Yeah, certainly you're not going to be overly craving in the evening.
No.
And you're not going to store a lot of body fat, if at all any.
Yeah.
So the research is really all over around that. I've seen people, and again, it depends on digestive enzymes, the acidity of your stomach, how thoroughly you're chewing your food, how your microbiome's functioning around absorbability of protein. But I've seen studies that go 60 to 80 grams is completely usable.
Really?
By individual for somebody that's set up for success that has a high level of muscularity and trains hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, that's not everybody. But again, if you're going to mess up on one macronutrient, it is protein. See more lean protein. And that's another strategy I'll work with people. Again, progress, not perfection. Go to a restaurant. You're going to double your protein.
Yeah.
Eat that first. After that, you can eat whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Right? If you still have room after you clean your plate and you want chocolate cake after you've eaten 2 giant chicken breasts, go for it.
Yeah.
And then reports back are like, I couldn't even finish my rice, or I couldn't finish my potato. Yeah. Great. And then you didn't have restrictions. Like, it wasn't imposed on you. You made the decision not to continue to eat.
Right. Here's a dumb question. Chili's,
Nope.
they're everywhere, right? So some
Yeah.
guy loves Chili's. He goes to Chili's all the time. What do you tell him to eat it like Chili's?
Well, depending if I was just
Depending on the person, I guess. Yeah.
depending on the person, right? When I do these talks or when I work with trainers, they get so annoyed with me. I'm like, because it depends.
Yeah.
Everything is always depends, and they're like, oh, just give me the answer. But
So you've
Chili's
got
has,
somebody
yeah,
who you're coming off a GLP-1 agonist, and let's say she's just really trying to, hassles with cravings, and she's, she loves. Yeah, so you've lost 30 pounds. You've gotten her from 39% body fat to 31% body fat, and you're still trucking along.
yeah,
And she struggles and loves to eat out every night, Friday night.
yeah. I mean, and I have rarely been to a restaurant, especially like an American style restaurant,
Yeah,
that doesn't have a sirloin,
yeah.
that doesn't have a salmon, that doesn't have a shrimp, that doesn't have a scallop.
Mm-hmm.
So that again, we prioritize protein first. That's the biggest portion that I emphasize people, right? Like start with that, and then those meals typically come with, right? I have my 8 ounce or 6 ounce sirloin with my sautéed broccoli and my potato, and
Yeah.
then we just pick the right order.
Yeah.
Do all those things. Again, I'm not restricting you, but we eat the protein first. Then we get to the veg. If you got room for the potato, go for it. If you have room for something else, go for it. But again, going in that order, because it's so satiating,
Right.
especially when you go veg next, that fiber really fills people up, and then they can eat where they want. They leave satiated, because there's nothing more frustrating than going out with friends and family, going to a restaurant and leaving hungry,
Right.
right? So you don't have to feel hungry. You can choose foods that are very satiating, very filling, and very forgiving.
Yeah, that's probably the same way you deal with cravings. That's just a common thing you hear about late night. Need my potato chips. Need my nonsense. So
Well,
if you do that, satiating at 7 or whatever in the evening, you can
yeah,
kind of
do that. And
dial that back.
my clients always had 3 or 4 go-to whey protein based treats, right? I remember me and my wife used to make chocolate protein pancakes almost every night,
Yeah.
which is just like a coconut milk, a little bit of baking powder, a little bit of butter, ton of whey protein,
Mm-hmm.
and then put a little butter on top or a little bit of sugar-free syrup or something like that on there. And
Yeah.
it is crazy satiating,
Yeah.
tastes really good.
Yeah.
But we do that. We show them how to make smoothies, protein puddings, how to make whey protein muffins, things along those lines. So again, it might not be the same as a muffin, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when you have that craving, you have something that, one, can satiate you, tastes good, but is like you're proud of your choice.
Yeah.
Right? It makes it's like that trifecta of like, this is something I can continue to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about all these things. I've got a patient that's he used to be or he still is a cyclist, but he got real busy. Business was doing great and all that sort of stuff. And he came to me almost in tears and just, I got to get my life back together. I want to grow old to see my kids. And we talked about, lean muscle being the currency of aging, really. And we didn't even talk about that, but talking about some of these things with the dietary interventions, with the peptides and everything, he came back to me. We'd follow up every 3 months, and 6 months we were just doing great. Life had changed. And he said, I feel like I've been given the cheat code. And all these things we're talking about is like, they come to you, they feel like, I feel like we're cheating. This is, we're kind of, but so that's really, everything you're saying is really great about, as far as increasing their protein and, dealing with those, kind of.
Yeah. Even I've heard that with people that are embarrassed or think it's taboo to go on a GLP-1 when they're a great candidate.
Yeah.
Blood sugar's elevated. Your A1C is elevated. Your insulin's elevated.
Yeah.
You have visceral body fat. You're overweight, but I don't want to cheat. Feels like cheating.
Mm-hmm.
What I usually put into context, at least for a handful of people I'm working with, I'm like, I guess we have to define what cheating is.
Yeah.
Because you drive a car to work, you didn't walk.
Yeah.
You didn't ride your bike, right? Is that cheating, right? Like, right?
Yeah.
And for some people, and again, I'm not trying to convince anybody to take a drug by any means, and especially if they don't want it, but like it is a life-saving opportunity for many people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to impact the people around you for you just to be healthier, happier, more energetic for them. And when
Yeah.
you have these things, again, I'm not trying to impose it on anybody, but like giving themselves permission to take that step, right? Because for a lot of people, I've had this a couple times in my career where one of the couples lost a significant amount of weight and they ended up getting a divorce because the other one was so jealous of them that they couldn't do it for themselves, and they were getting attention, new attention, and they just couldn't handle it mentally. Right? So there is some fear of success too that comes along with some of these things, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I would be able to do if I lost 50, 60 pounds. Like, I don't know if my friends would like me. I don't know if my peers would treat me differently if they knew I was taking this, right? And then it's just going back to, again, making sure you're anchored on a good reason why. It's for me, it's for my family, it's for my friend, things along those lines.
Yeah. Well, I know I got to be respectful of your time. I really appreciated it, but I do, do you have any other success stories? I mean, the one thing that you do, and you can tell people to have willpower and motivation, but you really need to inspire people, and in order for them to make any, myself included, to be able to meet goals in life, you have to have some sort of inspiration. So just your story and everything you do is actually pretty inspiring. So, do you have any other awesome patient success stories that come to mind?
I haven't shared my favorite one. I can do this one quickly, but
Okay.
then I probably do.
Yeah.
If you need to run.
Yeah.
I worked with a gentleman named John. This is actually, I back up. This is actually a pretty funny story, how it starts. So his mom hires me. She's going to do 2 nutrition coaching sessions with me, and she no-shows both. So she's charged. She didn't cancel within 24 hours. I walk up to her, and I was not being a good person, right? This is 24-year-old me. I walk up and I'm like, Kim, what's going on? You no-showed my sessions. And I was never no-showed in my career, but she no-showed me twice. So I was like, my ego was in the way, right?
Yeah.
I used to have a much bigger ego. I'm working on it, guys. And so I was like, why don't you just come to my office? Let's talk this out. Right? I was upset. And I asked this question, but it was accidental. No intention behind it. But I'm like, what's going to take you to commit? Like, I was not being a good human. And she goes, you know what? You're right. I need to train with you 3 times per week. Mind you, she's wearing a hoodie with a hole in it. I can see both of her big toes through her shoes. So I was like, you can't afford this. Again, that's what's going in my head. And they're like, well, that's $120 an hour times 3. This is what it would cost. You can commit to that? She's like, yep. Okay, let's do it. And then she goes, do you work with high schoolers? It's like, sure. What's the scenario? He goes, well, my son is really struggling. He just graduated high school. He can't get into college. He suffers from dyslipidemia. He's on a blood pressure medication. He's on an antipsychotic. He's 70 pounds overweight. He sweats profusively because of the medication, so he has a really hard time working out. Would you take him on? It's like, I'll give it a shot. She hired me to train him 5 days a week. So 8 times a week that family came in. And John was way down on the spectrum. He had a really hard time communicating with people. He actually had this thing where he liked to make people feel uncomfortable. It was entertainment for him. So I'd be very careful who he trained around. He did some interesting things.
Yeah.
But one point, I'll never forget this either. We're training, and he doesn't make eye contact with me at this point, right? He's an 18-year-old kid. I'm 24, 25. I'm relatively in shape. He's not in shape. Never made eye contact with me. So he's looking at me with his peripheral and goes, how many medications are you on? Because he knew I knew his, right? I'm like, John, I'm not on any. He snaps, and for the first time he makes eye contact with me. He goes, how is that possible? I'm like, I can show you if you're open to it. And he's like, let's do that. And over the next year, he lost 75 pounds. We got him off every medication. He went to college, graduated summa cum laude, and now is on the board of his engineering firm.
Oh, wow.
That's my favorite one.
Very cool. Very cool.
And just the power of exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, right? He was His medications were creating some crazy nutrient deficiencies. He wasn't moving. He wasn't putting nutrition in his body, so he had crazy fatigue. And
Yeah.
we just slowly unpeeled it.
Yeah.
And he was the epitome of momentum, catching momentum. Once he started to see that he was unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, hey, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah,
You're a stellar human. So thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks for listening. You can follow us on Apple and Spotify, and please review us to let us know what you think.